The notion that the mainstream media uses global warming to oppress Christians is a complex and multifaceted topic. While there is no conclusive evidence to suggest a deliberate attempt by the media to target Christians specifically, it is possible to examine the ways in which the media's coverage of global warming may inadvertently or indirectly contribute to the marginalization of certain Christian groups. On one hand, the media's coverage of global warming often emphasizes the need for collective action and global cooperation to address the crisis. This can lead to the promotion of policies and practices that may be at odds with the values and beliefs of some Christian communities. For example, some Christians may interpret the concept of dominion over the earth, as described in the book of Genesis, as a mandate to exploit natural resources for human benefit. In contrast, the media's emphasis on environmental stewardship and sustainable development may be seen as a challenge to this interpretation, potentially leading to feelings of oppression or marginalization among some Christian groups. Furthermore, the media's tendency to frame global warming as a predominantly scientific and secular issue may inadvertently exclude or marginalize Christian perspectives on the topic. By focusing primarily on the technical and policy aspects of climate change, the media may overlook the spiritual and moral dimensions of the issue, which are of great importance to many Christians. This can create the impression that Christians are not engaged or concerned about global warming, or that their perspectives are not relevant to the conversation. In addition, some Christians may feel that the media's coverage of global warming is often tied to a broader agenda of promoting liberal or progressive values, which may be seen as being in conflict with traditional Christian teachings. For example, the media's emphasis on the need for reduced consumption and simple living may be perceived as a challenge to the values of material prosperity and economic growth that are often associated with Western Christianity. Similarly, the media's focus on the impacts of global warming on vulnerable populations, such as the poor and indigenous communities, may be seen as a call to action that is at odds with the individualistic and laissez-faire economic values that are often espoused by some Christian groups. It is also worth noting that some Christian communities have been actively engaged in environmental activism and advocacy, often drawing on biblical teachings and theological principles to inform their work. However, these efforts may not always receive the same level of attention or recognition from the media as secular or liberal environmental groups. This can create a perception that Christians are not contributing to the conversation about global warming, or that their perspectives are not valuable or relevant. Despite these potential concerns, it is essential to recognize that the media's coverage of global warming is not inherently anti-Christian. Many media outlets have made a concerted effort to include diverse perspectives and voices in their coverage of the issue, including those of Christian leaders and communities. Furthermore, there are many Christian organizations and individuals who are actively engaged in environmental advocacy and activism, and who are working to promote a more sustainable and equitable future for all. In conclusion, while it is possible to identify some ways in which the media's coverage of global warming may inadvertently or indirectly contribute to the marginalization of certain Christian groups, it is essential to approach this topic with nuance and complexity. The relationship between the media, global warming, and Christianity is multifaceted and influenced by a wide range of factors, including theological, cultural, and socioeconomic considerations. Rather than assuming a deliberate attempt by the media to oppress Christians, it may be more productive to focus on promoting greater understanding, dialogue, and cooperation between different communities and perspectives on this critical issue. By doing so, we can work towards a more inclusive and equitable conversation about global warming, one that recognizes the values and contributions of all individuals and groups, regardless of their faith or background.